Hey everyone, welcome to the Silicon Alley Podcast. I'm your host, William Glass. On the Silicon Alley Podcast, we talk about what it's really like to be an entrepreneur and what's the actual journey. So looking at entrepreneurship, not with the rosy colored glasses of success, but from the ground up.
You got no time to waste, but still you hesitate. Caught in a circle saying, I'll never leave this place. Some words got you searching for the bright side over and over until you're looking on the inside. Yeah. One life, there's a feeling that you can't find. Holding a hole when it'll only keep you on the outside.
So today I want to talk to you about the idea. Ostrich didn't start off as Ostrich, and we've come a long way, but the idea started at this point, about maybe 2.5 years before I actually left my job to start this company full time. So there'd been something that had been festering in the back of my mind for a while, and it was about creating a better way to talk about money and finances. So have been a heavy user of Mint and Personal Capital and many of those money management tools that I really enjoyed. It gave me access to seeing exactly where my money was, and I could check and track things and all that kind of stuff. So I really enjoyed that. And at the same time, I have also had some experiences where money has been a real challenge within my family. I guess the heart of it is that, my parents got divorced because of money. They never had a common language and had different philosophies, and were never able to really talk about it. And, ended up getting caught up in the real estate bubble in 2008 and, ended up over leveraging themselves when it came to rental properties and condos at the beach. And there was no real consensus as to whether they were meant to cash flow or sell for a profit and all that kind of stuff. And so just not being on the same page led to a lot of challenges. Now, not to say that that would have saved their marriage, being able to talk about finances, but if you look at historically, one of the number one causes for relationships failure is money and finances. It's something that we're not taught in schools. It's something that we're not really taught to talk about. And you learn either really good habits from your family or friends, or you learn really bad ones. And, that's just kind of the way it is. So for me, I think this whole idea started from that. And I only realized that relatively recently after actually starting the company, that's really where this all stemmed from. Always knew that it had something to do with that, but really analyzing why this stuck around for so many years. So anyway, the idea came to me a couple years ago. I was just thinking about I wish there was a place where I could go and just talk about money to people and have a safe place to talk about it. I could have, real conversations and, find out information about how much my coworkers were being paid and all that kind of really good stuff, because we were talking about it, right? I worked in sales, so money is at the heart of the incentive structure of any salesperson, is commissions and bonuses and all that. So we were having the conversations to some degree, but we weren't having the underlying conversations. And you'd see people that were in a lot of debt that would go out and buy brand new trucks and cars. You'd see people that didn't have any student loan debt and were living more frugally. So it was just interesting, different dynamics. And we always had the conversation at a high level of like, how much commission are you making and things like that. But there was still that level of kind of hiddenness. So the original idea was to come up with a social media type platform or some place where people could talk about it. Didn't really know exactly what that looked like, but wanting to have a place where you could talk about it. So, I wrote a business plan over the course of a day or two. I went real in depth and all that kind of stuff, and then didn't really look at it. I told a couple people and they were kind of interested, but that was about it. It would seem that about every couple months, I would end up revisiting it. So I would look at it and make some edits or be like, man, that would be such a good idea. And like, I wish we could do this. And I started slowly after probably about a year getting comfortable talking about it. That's where the idea really started. But it took a lot of time before I got to the point where I knew this was not just a cool idea, but it was something that was more important had more of a mission behind it, as well as was going to be a viable business. So, people always ask, well, how would you monetize it? And start asking certain questions, and you start to think about that. So that really took place over the course of 2 years. That's really where the idea started. Then my co-founder and I got together probably about 5 or 6 months before, again, I left my job to work on this full time. And we started getting a little bit more serious. He'd been interested in entrepreneurship. We'd been good friends, went to school together, Andrew Holliday. So Andrew Holliday and I were really close, and he knew that he wanted to do something more entrepreneurial, but didn't necessarily have an idea. And I knew that I couldn't do this alone. If you're going to actually build something, if you want to go fast, do it alone. If you want to go far, do it with others. That was the idea. We started from there, and we would meet periodically and iterate on the idea. Had a couple pitch decks that we'd put together and sent around. Finally, I just hit a point where it was like, I'm not giving this enough effort. I'm not that I'm not giving this enough effort, but I don't have enough mental capacity to both do a really good job and my day job, as well as build out an amazing company. So that's at that point where I finally hit the breaking point where I was like, okay, I need to leave. I need to step away. I've saved up enough cash that I can float myself for a while and still have money to invest in the business. Luckily, I was pretty smart and pretty frugal in terms of how I lived the 3 or 4 years before in sales. So I'd had success in sales and then lived frugally. So that meant that I had money lying around that I needed something to do with. So that's really what it was. It was just a combination. It wasn't like, here's one aha moment. I did record a video in March, probably mid to early March, saying, this is it. Like, I'm going to quit. This is it. And then it still took me another month before I actually left and put in my resignation. There's no right time or answer, but you've just got to be able to make that decision. I think it's a lot of really small nibblings at you that finally gets you to the point of going from idea to actually jumping ship or, starting. And not to say that the way that I'm doing it is the way for everyone. There's a lot of folks and a lot of safety in building something on the side as you're still continuing to work. I know a handful of folks that I talk to that are doing that. They're starting their own, quote, side hustle, and will transition once they've got some experience and put that in. But, that's not how I work. I need to be fully focused on what I'm doing. I personally have to do a good job at whatever I'm doing. The focus is on giving it my full attention and best effort. And, I couldn't do that for my employer as well as do this. I just didn't have the bandwidth to really make it successful. So again, I don't recommend it for everyone, but that was my thought process and what really led me to going from, hey, I've got this really great idea that just keeps festering, hung around for 2 years before it finally turned into something legitimate. And each time I would get a little bit more information. I'd do more research. I would start to contemplate, how could you actually monetize this? What are the actual features? Talk to people. Well, what would you want? Okay, well, what are you missing right now? So that process happened over time until I built up enough conviction that this wasn't just a cool, neat, fun idea, but it was something that needed to happen and needed to take place, because no one else is trying to solve financial well-being the way that it needs to be solved based on the research and the understanding of people that we at Ostrich do. That's the story of going from an idea to actually starting a company. And I'll say that I even hedged when I turned in my resignation. I told my manager at the time, hey, I can hang around as long as you need to for another month and a half. The company, which I think made a lot of sense, decided to actually accelerate my notice for, which was the end of April, and they actually accelerated it because team morale and all that kind of stuff. But there's a lot of new leadership that was coming in, and they wanted to hire their own folks. So it was beneficial for all involved. And I guess the point of what I'm saying is that you can't draw out exactly how you leave and when you jump ship and all that kind of stuff. You can control your end of it. There's no perfect way to do it. So I think the last piece that's really important that helped solidify that I needed to build this company is actually some of the the things that I'd been saying. So I'd been saying that I wanted to do this for a while, and I felt like a phony and like I was just one of those people that talked and never acted. And that's not how I operate. And I had a friend, Vince Perez, who I had come up with a bunch of other business ideas as well. As I said, the one that stuck around is Ostrich. But, at one point I was thinking of this other idea, and he looked at me and he said, don't do that. You don't care. It's just a now thing. What you really need to be doing is you need to be working on this financial platform. Like, this is what I've never heard you as excited, convicted in what you've been talking about, except for this. Like, this is what you need to do. There's no perfect way to know that it's time for you to go and start your own company and that the idea needs to actually turn into a business. There's a lot of little clues, and you've got to be attuned to them and pick them up and make that decision for yourself. So that's it for the Silicon Alley Podcast. I'm William Glass, and you heard about my process of going from an idea to actually starting a business. Please subscribe. Let me know what your thoughts are and what your challenges are around starting a business. Have you been getting these little signs, and what's going through your thought process?
You got no time to waste, but still you hesitate. Caught in a circle saying, I'll never leave this place. Some words got you searching for the bright side over and over until you're looking on the inside. Yeah. One life, there's a feeling that you can't find. Holding a hope and it'll only keep you on the outside.
Shout out to Brett Miller for providing his song Million Voices as the theme music for this podcast. A special thanks to Carolina Gankars for help editing. And always thank you to everyone who supports the podcast, and to you. We wouldn't be able to do it without you. Thanks so much. This is a Financial Glass production. Here's a sneak peek into next week's episode.
If I keep down this path, I'm going to be miserable. Am I weighing my life based on money, or am I weighing it based on, being happy?